Hey lovelies, you're welcome back to Reviews and Recaps. Let's get into today's video. So today we're going to be doing a recap of Love and Marriage Detroit Season 1, Episode 6. So if you're new to this channel, please make sure you subscribe. If you haven't already, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you're a returning subscriber, I love you. Thank you very much. Let's get into it. So the episode started with the conversation between Christina, Brandon, and Anthony. So Anthony was basically saying that he didn't trust Brandon because he feels like Brandon is trying to snake a friend that they know and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, first of all, Brandon ain't trying to snake nobody, right? You are the one trying to snake Brandon by taking over an initiative that he pitched. Like, if anything, you're the snake, Anthony. Not a snake calling someone else a snake. Like, I don't understand that. So Anthony kept on saying that he feels like Christina loves drama. And Christina was like, you've jumped on the bandwagon. It's clear that you've chosen your side. And so he's like, no, he didn't pick a side. I'm like, dude, you picked a side. I don't know why people get upset when people call out what the facts are. Like, you've picked a side and that's okay. If that's where you want to be, then stop straddling the fence. Like, own it and say, yes, I picked a side because I believe that side to be true. Not acting like, oh, I didn't pick a side. Dude, you picked a side. The whole thing, the way you've acted since that incident showed that you picked a side. So like, own it and stop like wasting the rest of our time, okay? So anyways, moving on, Anthony and Latoya were chilling in their house or whatnot. And Latoya was basically saying that she went to Kolby's event and it was very chill. There was no drama whatsoever. And she then brought up the fact that Christina didn't even call Kolby to wish her a happy birthday. Dude, stay out of it. Not everyone is nice enough that they would pick up the phone on your birthday, even if they're not cool with you, to say happy birthday. For me, I'm generally cool like that. I may not speak to you or whatnot, but I might text you saying happy birthday just because I'm just like, it's your birthday. I don't want to be petty. It is what it is, okay? So that's what I generally would do. Then Anthony starts catching her up about the conversation that he had with Brandon and Christina. And he was basically saying that he feels like Christina has an issue with Latoya because she kept trying to figure out where Latoya was. And she does not like, and she basically doesn't see why Latoya didn't show up. And she wanted to know where Latoya was. I'm like, she asked one question about it. Why are you making it seem that the whole conversation was Christina asking about Latoya when it wasn't? Anthony just likes to stare at the pot. He acts like a little bee. That's how he acts. And I am not here for it at all. So Latoya starts talking about she doesn't have an issue with her and that if Christina has an issue with her, Christina needs to say it to her face. I'm like, girl, shut up. So then Latoya starts talking about the fact that she doesn't like public display of issues. I'm like, dude, you're on a reality TV show. You shouldn't have signed up for it if you don't like public display of issues. It's almost like you want them to communicate privately behind the screens and then you want to be giving us some BS manufactured beef. Like, no. If the beef happens on camera, we want to see the whole thing play out. Even if it doesn't happen on camera, it should happen on camera because that's what you signed up for when you chose to do a reality TV show, to show us your reality. So please show us the reality. Thank you. So Latoya starts talking about the common denominator at all these three events is Brandon and Christina, and they like drama. Like, I'm not even trying to stick up for Brandon and Christina, but let's think about it for a second. At Christina's wedding anniversary event, guess who brought up issues? Kolby was the one that started it. Let's be clear, right? But Latoya is too blind to see that. Kolby brought up the conversation. At the winery event, a little B Anthony was the one who brought up the thing. The difference is if you bring the smoke, of course, I might not necessarily quench the fire for you. I might bring all the fire and enhance the smoke. It is clear that Latoya has transferred aggression towards Christina. Focus that anger towards your husband, who has been acting like a little bee since day one. That's who you need to focus your energy on. Stop focusing on this lady that did nothing to you. Okay? So moving on, Russell and Kolby were having a quick chat. Russell was basically telling her that he's going to swing over to the gym to try and finalize numbers and basically negotiate a deal. And so she was like, she hasn't seen an invite. And she was being very passive aggressive and basically trying to get him to invite her to the meeting. So she's like, yeah, you tell me, I'll clear up my schedule so I can be there. And so eventually they agreed to that. What is so clear is that Russell does not communicate with her about any of his plans. He doesn't keep her abreast of what his goals are, what he's trying to do. And it can be quite frustrating dating someone who feels like they have to handle, or married to someone who thinks they have to handle everything by themselves and they can't communicate with you. The whole point of being in a relationship and stuff is for you to have open communication. You need to be able to communicate. That's just the reality of things. So I definitely empathize with Kolby on that, but I think being passive aggressive is not the way to go, because you're not going to get what you think you're going to get. And that was just unnecessary. So I would say she needs to communicate better. And Russell definitely needs to communicate. I think deep down, the reason Russell does what he does is because he feels like, I'm the man. This is my job to handle this. And I don't need to communicate with you. Of course, that's not right, because you can't be making all these decisions without speaking to me. We can't be investing in stuff without you speaking to me. That doesn't mean you need my permission, but it's a communication thing. Like, if I'm your best friend, then you should tell your best friend what you have going on. That's just how it works. Anyways, Christina showed up to the studio, honey. I was like, okay, Christina, like, you got an invite to the studio today? Okay. So Brandon was basically telling her that he got a text from Anthony, basically saying to him that he gets 3 slots to showcase his talent. And he's like, so how many slots are there? And apparently Anthony said there were 25 slots and he gets 3. I'm like, that is wild. Imagine you pitching an event, you doing an event, and then someone tells you there's 25 slots, but I'm going to give you 3 slots to your event. That is insane. Like, what is Anthony on? Like, okay, I'm not going to escalate it, but I was going to say something right now. Like, what are you on, sir? Like, why do you think that is acceptable? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So he's basically ignored him, and he and DJ Mix will be bringing 10 artists each. I'm like, okay, then cool. And then he was like, so Christina was like, okay, so does Anthony have artists? Is he a manager? And then Brandon was like, I don't know what he does. I don't know. And that's the thing. No one knows what he does. Like, he said he got the opportunity with Marvin or wherever he said. But, like, what do you do? Like, give us some context, you know? And one thing that Brandon said, Brandon was like, he'll forever be looking at Anthony with the side eye. I can see that. Because if you bring a business idea to someone and then they go ahead to do it or whatever without you, that's insane. I don't care if it's a business idea, an event, whatever. That is not right, right? Like, if you bring a business idea to me and we work on it and we do it, and then eventually I then decide to branch out and do my own thing as well, I'm well within my rights to do that, right? But the difference is, if we're collaborating on this project and this is our project, then we both need to be putting into it and do it the way we've agreed to do it. Not someone deciding, oh, there are 25 slots, but I'm gonna give you 3 to your event. That's it must be drugs. It really has to be. What the hell? Anyways, moving on. So Chelsea came over to see Kolby. Chelsea is Kolby's friend. And Chelsea was basically saying that he was shocked that Russell uninvited Christina and Brandon. And so they start talking about that. Kolby sort of redirected the conversation and started talking about how she's been having some communication issues with Russell, and that Russell is trying to buy the gym, but she's pretty much at the back end of the conversation. No one is telling her anything. And she feels like Russell has this macho personality Then she starts making excuses for him. She's like, oh, he's been single for 7 years, a bachelor for 7 years, so he just does things without having a conversation. I'm like, It is not the fact that this man has been a bachelor for 7 years that is making him do these things. It is the fact that he doesn't see you as a partner. His opinion is that a man is here and then the woman is underneath, right? That is his opinion. That is his view, right? Him deciding to do that is a reflection, is a consequence of his mindset. It's a consequence of his mindset. And so that's the part that really, really just irritates me with that. So it just comes across as that's what that's about, really. At this point, I just feel like she's making excuses for him. I definitely think they need to get into counseling and he needs to unlearn all of this nonsense that he has learned because, something is definitely wrong there. Moving on, Christina had a meeting with Brittany Brown, who's a publicist, and she was talking about the fact that she wanted to get a publicist for her personal brand. So Brittany basically mentioned that Anthony was saying that Brandon doesn't like the publicist, as in her. And I was like, okay, that is such an odd thing to say. And Christina is like, she doesn't know anything about that. And she's like, she has no issues with her, and that if she had an issue with her, she wouldn't be sitting down with her. So she doesn't know where that's coming from. Mrs. Latoya, do you know who the common denominator is in this mess? Your husband, Anthony. Your husband. Moving on, Russell decided to have a Bible study for the men. They all came over and it was part of what he has to do as homework for his divinity school. So Russell then brought up the fact that Christina called him in relation to the issue of the publicist, basically saying that Anthony told the publicist that y'all don't like the publicist, basically, to also include Russell. And so Russell was like, he's a bit confused about that. And then Anthony jumped in and Anthony was talking about how he basically said Brandon was the one that said that, and that Brandon is the one that basically does not like the publicist. Did you guys pick up on the way Anthony was responding to Russell? It was given Anthony was acting like a little child being questioned by his principal. I was just like, that's very odd. That dynamic is weird. So he was there like, no, he didn't say that, but he meant that in relation to Brandon. And then Brandon and him started going back and forth. Brandon was like, what do you even do? You know, all I know is that you have daddy's money. And he got pissed off. He went in on Brandon and basically said, well, Star Factory has not produced not one star. I'm like, okay. But anyways, they went back and forth and eventually they calmed it all down and they hugged it out. And I was like, okay. The thing about it is this. I feel like Brandon might have said it, but I feel like the way in which it was said was probably not as deep as Anthony relayed to the conversation, in my opinion. Anthony comes across as an ish starter. So he will twist and say whatever he got to say to get a reaction. And I think that's what that's about. So for me, I don't have any sort of sympathy or trust in Anthony delivering the message the way it was intended. So the final scene was Kolby and Christina decided to meet at the park. So Christina initiated the conversation. Kolby was saying in her confessionals that she doesn't know why they have to do it face to face. Why can't they just speak on the phone? And I'm just like, I would have thought you would want to speak to your friend face to face so that you guys can just squash it. It's given you don't want to be on camera discussing this issue, which also then makes me think, is there truth to you being a Kolby cat? But okay. So she was like, and you could just tell the way her energy was from the start. Her energy was just very negative. It was given like she was pissed off before she came. So then she and Christina start talking. Christina was basically saying she wanted them to have a face-to-face conversation. Kolby kept jumping in. Kolby was just like, well, they could have had the conversation over the phone. You could have called me privately. And she's like, I just thought it would be easier to have the conversation face to face. Like, what's the problem with that? Then Kolby then goes on a rant about how Christina called her husband and don't you ever call my husband again. And then Christina was like, first time I did that and it will never happen again. And then Kolby still kept going on. Kolby was like, don't you ever call. She just said, sure. She said, we'll never do that again. Period. But you're still going off on her and ranting and ranting and ranting. She kept shouting. And I was just like, dial it back. Dial it down a few notches. Like, what is going on here? She kept going on about that. I think Kolby needs to calm down. Like, you need to be able to have a civil conversation. Even if you don't like this person, you can communicate with this person. You can have conversations with this person. There is no need for you to be like on a madness, on a rant like that. There is no need for that. There's no need for you to be shouting in someone's ears. It doesn't make any sense. It's like you don't want her to have the face-to-face conversation and you're very upset, which I'm like, I get. I understand you being upset, but like, chill. Like, she already said she would never call your husband again. Why are you still going on about it? Like, I understand being upset because it's like, we're not speaking. Don't call anyone related to me. Even though personally, like, yeah, in hindsight, I think definitely I would not want you calling my husband. So I get it. But at the same time, it's not that deep. This woman has sat before you and said it would never happen again. Why not just let it go? Like, why do you need to keep going off? My problem with Kolby also is you're not letting Christina speak. Let this woman get a word in. Instead, you keep shouting and saying she's gaslighting you and she's manipulative and she's this. Dude, you're the one that looks crazy right now. Let her speak so that you can respond. Like, instead, it feels like she just goes off on a tangent and keeps going off. And then she's like, oh, you're so manipulative. Like, dude, where is that energy for your husband? Where is that energy for other people? You need to direct your energy where it needs to be directed at. Stop directing it at this girl who's trying to have a conversation with you. I think for me, a huge pet peeve of mine is like when you're trying to have a conversation with someone, you're not trying to make it a heated conversation. You just want to have a very direct, calm conversation with someone. Let's squash this. Let's address it. Let's be done with it. But then they want to have the conversation and then they're on 10 and raising their voice. Like, for me, Christina is a lot calmer than I am because I'm sorry, I'm not about to sit down for someone to be in my face shouting at me in that manner and being aggressive. And then when I'm trying to get the tempo down, you're not budging. I already said I ain't never going to speak to your husband again directly. Like, what else? Chill. Like, can we temper it down a little bit? Kolby, I feel, just doesn't like the fact that Christina and Brandon embarrassed her when Brandon called her a Kolby cat. And I think that hit deep, probably because there is some truth to it. And she's now like alpha blood. I think that's what it is, because I don't understand why you're so upset. Like, it is not that deep. If you know you're not a Kolby cat, a copycat, whatever, right? Why are you so upset about it? Right? Why are you going on 10 and why can't you just have a civil conversation? Also, why can't you let the girl speak so we can hear her perspective? It's like, we know your perspective. We know where you stand because you said it every chance you've gotten. But now let this woman speak so we can also know what she's trying to say, so we can hear her side of it. So I personally do not like that, but let me know what you guys thought of that. Who do you think is in the right here? Do you think it was Kolby? Do you think it was Christina? I personally think that you need to let everyone speak. When you're having a conversation, it's a two-way street. Let her speak, you speak. You speak, you let her speak. You deciding to hog the conversation and not let this woman speak is disrespectful for no reason. Like, what did she even do to you? Let's temper this, right? You have all this vim for Christina, but Christina was not the one that called you a Kolby cat. That was Brandon. So maybe you need to shift that energy towards Brandon when next you see him and leave Christina out of this madness that you keep bringing her into, right? That's what I think. And the thing is, I don't even have any favorites yet, but I just don't like the way Kolby is handling this conflict. You can handle conflicts by having a dialogue. There is no need for you to be shouting at such when it's not something that it ain't even that deep. It's not like over the years you guys have been in this situation. Like, it's not that deep. Anyways, that's the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe if you still haven't subscribed at this point. Give this video a thumbs up if you haven't already. And I will see you guys later. Take care. Bye.